because I was having a lot of pain in my L spine. And so they did an MRI and they're like, oh, you got some disc degeneration, but nothing big. And then they did my T spine and nothing. Then they did my C spine, which is up in my neck. And I got that MRI done the next day. I got a phone call and they're like, you need to come here right now. And they put the X-ray up, and where my spinal cord was on the X-ray for my C spine, it was like almost completely black because of the damage on it. Because what had happened was I herniated a disc, and it basically crushed my C spine at 4 and 5. But then because I didn't do anything, it's like rubbing up and down as well.
So if you would have got it checked out sooner, would it have been as bad, or could you have avoided that?
I'd say it probably wouldn't have been as bad. Because my surgery, so I ended up having surgery, and they fused my, he's like, because the surgeon had asked me, he's like, we can do 4 and 5, C4, C5 fusion, and they go in through the front. He's like, but I have damage from 3 through 6.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And he's like, but if we fuse that, we're going in through the back. It's just a little bit more delicate. He's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, you do this for a living. You tell me what you would do.
Exactly.
And so he had told me, he's like, we're basically just stabilizing this at this point. He's like, we can't fix anything. It's just a stabilization. So he recommended the 4 and 5. He's like, at that point, it's stabilized. So in the future, I might have to have the full fusion. He's like, but you might not. You can just kick that can down the road. I'm like, all right, so we'll do that. The big thing was, so this was 2010, August of 2010 when I had the surgery. I had my surgery on my second wedding anniversary. I always remember the day that I had my surgery.
Yeah.
At that time, they were still in the concept of wherever you are a year out from the injury is what you're going to be. So he was like, I got injured in November, so this is August. So he's like, we're not even going to do physical therapy. We're just doing the surgery and have a nice day.
Okay.
So I had that surgery. Then I was out for like 48 days, hanging out at home with an awesome collar on, and then I went back, and they were I was supposed to go to Wounded Warrior Battalion, but for some reason it never happened. They just were like, hey, you can't do your job anymore, so go hang out in the armory. So I was doing that, helping out over there, and then I hit my EAS and got out. And I remember, I was super excited to get out because I was just stagnating. I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah,
but then that day, those days, after I got out, it was just like, man, this is
depressing.
Over. And, I hit a real dark slide, a lot of drinking, a lot of eating. I was just sitting around doing nothing. It was one of those things where, I was looking forward to this, and now it's like, man, this is not what I expected.
Do you think that's what pushed you into wanting to be a personal trainer?
So that was it took a while for me to get there. So I got out in December of 2011. We moved out to Arizona, and we moved out here. I think our son was just turned 1 at that point. We moved out here. So we got out here, and I got a job. I was working. The surgery, the stabilization definitely helped. I got a job. I was working, and things were going all right. I mean, I was on night shift, so it didn't help, the depression and all that kind of stuff because I wasn't sleeping or anything.
Okay.
Sure. I wasn't sleeping much. I mean, I was just I guess a functioning asshole, for lack of a better term, because I was I was drinking. I wasn't sleeping. I hated everybody.
Yeah.
I hated the world. And then you're trying to hide that, so it just comes out even worse. And then I finally got a day shift position. There were people that worked there and people that knew me that within a week they're like, you're a completely different person right now. It was like just getting on a normal schedule, getting normal sleep, changed me so much.
Yeah.
Because I had done some counseling through the VA for that, but it was I got really, really frustrated because it was I had met with a psychologist, and he talked to me for like an hour, and then he gave me, I don't even remember what he prescribed me.
Medication.
But yeah, he prescribed me pills.
Mm-hmm.
And then I never heard from the guy again. Still to
Yeah.
this day, I have not heard from him.
Wow.
So there was no follow up.
Yeah.
So like, to me, that was just kind of like a, number one, like, I just divulged my soul to you.
Yeah, right.
And you just like, okay, here you go.
Here's some pills will take care of
and that
this.
probably feels horrible. You put yourself out there, were willing to talk to him and see if it could help you, and he did nothing for you.
Yeah, and I've had words with various providers that I've had at the VA about that, when they go and they do the mental health screen every time you go for an appointment, and they're like, well, do you want to talk to somebody? And I'm like, no. And they'll sit there and be like, well, your answers are kind of showing that you need to talk to somebody. And I'll be like, last time I talked to somebody, he threw me a bottle of pills, and I haven't heard from him since.
Yeah.
And that was, at this point, that's going on 6 years ago. So no, I don't want to talk to anybody here. I have people that I will talk to, but not in the system. But I've had kind of like this weird experience with the VA, and I talk to people about it, because we see these issues with the VA, but it's not this. There's so many facets to the VA, and my biggest issues have always been with compensation and pension, because when I initially had my med board, they're like, hey, okay, here, you're at 40%, have a nice day. And at that point, my med board had been like a year and a half. So I was just like, I'll take it. I'll worry about this later. I'm just ready to get out. And since then, because it's a spinal injury, the Paralyzed Veterans of America fought my case, and they're amazing. I linked up with another guy here in my town who's a complete quad, and he went through the Paralyzed Veterans of America. So we became like good friends, and
that's good.
And doing that. So, yeah,
there's somebody to talk to right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's one of those things. When I had my initial evaluation with the VA, they're doing the range of motion. So they're like, oh, touch your right ear to your right shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do it. It's like, okay, you told me to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's like, you didn't tell me, hey, go till there's pain. So they're like, oh, his range of motion is great.
Yeah.
No range of motion issues.
Yeah.
And then down here in Southern Arizona, I live in Casa Grande, so it's like halfway between Phoenix and Tucson. The Phoenix VA got all this bad rap, and the Tucson VA nobody was saying anything about. Somehow I got sent to the Tucson VA, and the doctor that I got hooked up with is just this amazing guy. Right out of the gate, he was super helpful. Always took the time to answer questions. Dr. Freeborn. If anybody's in Southern Arizona and needs a spinal guy, go see Dr. Freeborn at the VA. He's amazing. And then I was kind of telling him how frustrated I was, and he started doing tests. He's like, and he kind of told me what I need to do. So I got hooked up with the PVA, and now the way they do it now is you have to print off like this questionnaire thing, and then take it to the VA, and the doctor fills it out. So we did that, and they bumped my percentage up a little bit. And then in 2017, I think it was 2017, I woke up. I'm supposed to go out to the spinal clinic once a year. And because it's so hectic at Rare, I'm lucky to get every other year. So I had been a spinal cord patient in the VA for 4 or 5 years at this point, and I finally got my opportunity to go out to the spinal cord clinic. And the way it works is they call you like a week beforehand, and they're like, "Hey, we got a bed. Can you go?" And I'm like, "Bro, I work a full-time job.
Yeah.
I can't just drop." So my social worker, super awesome. He was like jumping through hoops for me. My boss at the time was just like, "Yeah, we'll just do FMLA and don't worry about it."
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So got me, and so I was supposed to leave on a Wednesday. I woke up to go to work on that Monday prior, and I just had like this super bad back pain in my lower back. I'm like, what is going on? So I made it through the day, come home, and like woke up Tuesday, and I'm like, bro, I can barely walk. What is going on? And my wife's like, why don't you just call off work? I'm like, I'm not going to be the one that, hey, I just had my boss jump through hoops to get me this time off, and I'm going to call off the day before this starts. So I'm like, I got an 8-hour shift. I can make this. And I slimed my way through that day. It was horrible. But I got home Tuesday evening. I took a shower, got everything ready. I woke up Wednesday morning, and my wife literally had to help me get dressed. Because like I couldn't pick up my legs or anything. We get to the airport. I shuffle on the plane. I shuffle, all that, and I get to the spine clinic, and
it's weird. It's weird that this happened when you were supposed to go see the spine clinic. Yeah.
Oh, it was one of those things. As horrible as it was, there couldn't have been a better time for this to happen.
Right.
So I get there on Wednesday, and then I go to sleep. I wake up Thursday, and the physical therapist comes in and was like, "Hey, I heard you're having trouble walking, so we brought you this walker."
Yeah.
And she's like, she helps me get out of bed, and I go to stand up, and I just collapsed with it. Like I had nothing from the waist down. It was just everything was no feeling, no sensation. I had finally gotten to this point where I didn't really think about my injury anymore. It just it was what it was. I kind of felt that it was stabilized, so I was good. I was finally coming out of the depression and all that kind of stuff, and kind of like, okay, this is a new normal. I get here. And then for me, it was as much as the lower back pain sucked, I could deal with that. It was, the fact that, hey, my son's 6 years old right now. We go and we hike in the mountains. We go and, we run around, and we're just idiots together, things that kids do. And it's like, I'm not going to I'm looking at this like, I can't do that anymore. It's, it was a real gut check for me, because there were, as a parent, it's life just keeps moving. And all of a sudden I started self-reflecting of all these times when, he's like, hey, let's go hike on the mountain. And I'm like, we'll do that next weekend, dude. I got stuff to do around the house. How many times did I tell him next weekend? And now there is no next weekend. And, so it was, and of course I'm in San Diego. I know nobody in San Diego. My wife and son are out here in Arizona. So I'm just laying in this bed alone, just lamenting my life. And I'm just like, hours of the day. I had no track of time whatsoever, because I had no reason to track the time.
Right.
So I'm just like sitting there, just like, and they're giving me, medication that are making me super groggy and drowsy. So that doesn't help the situation, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't think straight. So I'm just sitting there, just like sobbing myself to sleep, and just this big baby out there. Luckily, everything started resolving. So I was in a wheelchair for like a week, and it was one of those things. Like the first day, I'm like sitting in bed, and I'm like staring at this thing, like pissed off at the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like almost like in denial that I'm not gonna be in that wheelchair. By the end of the week, I'm like, I'm getting used to it, and then it's like, then things start getting better. It's like, oh, I'm like, but I want the wheelchair. Because you start to accept things. It's like, this is what it is, And it's like, okay, it's so the consistency wasn't there, And again, I had a friend that flew out to visit me while I was out there. It was super awesome to just be able to spend the afternoon. And I was at that was like at the tail end of my time in the wheelchair. So I was in a better mood at that point. I'd started to see like I go wheeling around in the wheelchair and see like the paraplegia news magazines. They have like sports and spokes, and it's just like, oh, this ain't so bad. Yeah. I mean that that you can do amazing things in a wheelchair.
Can still do normal things.
Yeah, so I was starting to get a better attitude of like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like, all right, we can still do this. And then, but I was getting really bad back spasms, and it kind of like I've had back spasms before where they're just painful, but these were the kind where it kind of like takes over your body and it's like making you contort. And it was just like the most excruciating pain. So then they started to put me on Flexerol, but it was like as